One of the social evil that we have is the prevalence of dowry. One of the issue that women face is the issue of dowry. So we all have heard about dowry. Dowry related incidents are quite frequently in the news. Dowry related death have also been commonplace. There have been instances of bride burning, and in fact they are quite rampant. So why are all these things prevalent in the society? What is the origin of dowry? Do we have any mechanism to prevent dowry? If we have a mechanism to prevent dowry, why it has not been very successful? Why the implementation has not been very successful? Now, what could have been the origin of dowry? Just imagine why it would have come to being in the first place. So, the traditional rights that women had, the tradition that we had, generally women were denied access to inheritance. Once a female gets married, she goes to a separate household and she should not be claiming any right to her parents' property. So they were denied part of the inheritance of her parents. A female was denied inheritance or share of the inheritance of her parents. So maybe dowry was a mechanism to compensate for that. So when she is getting married, she is getting a part of her parents' property because later on she will not get anything. Maybe it started like that. But now, despite having equal inheritance right, it still exists. Do we have any law to prevent dowry? We have multiple laws. For example, we have Dowry Prohibition Act. Dowry Prohibition Act came into being in 1961. It talks about dowry, what is the meaning of dowry. It has an extensive definition of dowry. It creates a cadre of professionals, officers, which are called dowry prohibition officers. It is a state who appoints dowry prohibition officers. These prohibition officers will have to ensure that there is no exchange of dowry in their vicinity. So the implementation of this law is the responsibility of the state, but the Women and Child Development Ministry has to review this thing from time to time. Also, we have Section 304B under Indian Penal Code. According to it, bride burning is one of those heinous crimes. There is the punishment for dowry-related death is more than 7 years. So dowry-related death is covered under Section 304B of Indian Penal Code. So we are having these mechanisms for prevention of dowry, but despite that, dowry continues. Exchange of dowry continues. What can be the reason? Again, one reason can be the language, how you are defining dowry. The way dowry is exchanged, sometimes it can be exchanged in the form of gift. So in the law itself, they say, in case the gift that is given is excessive as compared to the financial position of the person who has given it, then it will be considered dowry. But how do you define excessive? So the language can be sometimes vague. The enforcement of this law is not very strict. It is not consistent throughout different parts of the country. It is not consistent across states. These kind of incidents, dowry-related deaths, they happen within the families, within the household. It is very difficult to gather evidences, and many times they are just referred to as kitchen accidents. There was a death because of there was some leakage from the gas cylinder, and because of which there was fire and the person died, the female died. So many times they are referred to as kitchen accidents. There is delay when it comes to providing justice, and since there is a delay in justice, delayed justice is nothing but denied justice. Justice delayed is justice denied. Another issue here is the cultural attitude. It is generally considered in our society that females should not go against their in-laws, against their husband. Women consider their husbands as God. Pati Parameshwar, that is what is said in the society. So even if there are different threats, there are different abuse, or there are different demands for dowry, the female or the wife or the wife's parents, they will first try to resolve it. They will not take the issue to the courts. They will try to resolve it. They might even give dowry. And again, another thing, women are not empowered. The socio-economic condition of women is worse as compared to the male counterparts. So even if they challenge their male counterparts, in case there is divorce, in case there is separation, what will they do? The perception that is there in the society against women, that is also not that good. Single women are not, or they're generally looked down upon in the society. So financial independence of women is important. If they are not independent, it becomes very difficult to raise these issues. Apart from that, in recent times, there have also been allegations of misuse of this particular law. Sometimes women have also misused it. So in case, even if there is one instance of misuse, so the entire law is criticized, that it is against men. So many men rights organizations have also come up and they are protesting that these laws should be scrapped. So these are some challenges when it comes to implementation of the law related to dowry. Now, another challenge that we see in our society is domestic violence. Domestic violence exists in the society. Women are abused by their partners. They are threatened by their partners. So abuse is one component, they are also threatened. Both things happen. Different types of abuse they are subjected to. Men assume they have rights over the body of the female. That is the underlying assumption why there is violence. Now, what are some of the different factors which lead to violence against women? So, specifically in urban areas, if the incomes of the husband is more than the income of the wife, it can lead to domestic violence. Male ego issues can be there. Our society is patriarchal. It is undergoing different changes. The currents of urbanization, globalization is changing the patriarchal society, but still the society remains patriarchal. On one side, women are coming out of their households, they are working outside. At the same time, patriarchy wants women to also take up the responsibility and the entire responsibility of the household. With globalization, the culture at the workplace is changing. Night shifts can be there, extended working hours can be there. So now women are also working in night shifts. They might also have to work for extended hours. So in that case, sometimes what can happen, they might not be able to take care of the household activities. Sometimes they might not be able to take care of the elders. They might not be able to take care of the children. So in that case, patriarchy strikes back. They might be abused by their male counterparts. They can be abused by their husbands. Sometimes in rural areas, you face different kinds of challenges. In rural areas, sometimes women can be blamed for the death of their husband. Something happens to their husband, they might be blamed for that. That they brought ill luck, that is why the person died. So this orthodox patriarchal mindset can be there in rural areas. Also, dowry related violence can be there. Demand for dowry can be there. If it is not being met, violence can be ushered. It can be unleashed. Sometimes, if female is not able to bear a male kid, or if a female is not able to bear a child, there can be violence. Alcoholism and domestic violence, they are also strongly correlated. So, all these factors can lead to domestic violence against female. One thing you keep in mind, the different violence that women face. 36% of these violence takes place within the household. Of all the different forms of violence women face, majority of the violence is from within. 24% is outraging the modesty of female, that sexual molestation, exploitation. That is 24%. Majority of the threat women face, it is from within. This is the data of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Last year's data. So, domestic violence is the reason for the largest amount of violence that women face. But do we have any law for it? What is the law we have in place for protecting women from violence? So, we have a law, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. This law talks about the different kind of abuses women face. It also includes threat of abuse. So it also defines that threat of abuse is also illegal. It also defines who are women, which women are protected from domestic violence. It is not only wives, live-in partners can also be included. Mothers, sisters, they are also included in this. They are also protected from domestic violence. According to this law, women have a right to secured housing. You cannot throw a woman from the household. She can stay within that household. According to this law, protection orders can be passed by the court to protect women. For example, if protection order is passed, the perpetrator might be prevented from going to a particular place where a female generally goes. For example, a female works in a particular place, the perpetrator might be prevented from going to that place, to the vicinity of the woman. It also calls for a special cadre of officials, protection officers. So the state will appoint protection officers. These protection officers will ensure that women are protected. These protection officers, if they come across any incident of domestic violence, they will tell them what are the legal mechanisms they have in their disposal, at their disposal, what steps they can take, whether they can ask for compensation, whether they can, husbands or whoever, the male perpetrator, to the courts. So they will give them different kind of guidance. Different service providers are also recognized. For example, NGOs, they are also recognized. They can provide different kind of assistance. It also defines imprisonment. It also talks about fines in case domestic violence is being carried out. In case an officer is not discharging his or her duties, then it is also considered as an offense. So we have a law in place. It defines or it talks about all these mechanisms. It has all these principles in place. But despite this, domestic violence continues and there are different implementation challenges, implementation issues. What are some implementation issues which prevents the successful implementation of this particular law? See, this law defines abuse. It talks about the different types of abuse. For example, it talks about economic abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse. Sometimes these kind of things, for example, economic abuse, verbal abuse, it can have subjective interpretation. So it becomes a challenge when it comes to implementation. Also, women in India, especially those women who are in rural areas, they lack awareness. Some women might think that it is correct for their husband to beat them up. They do not understand that it is wrong. Domestic violence is illegal. They don't understand that. So it again is a challenge. The judicial process, sometimes it resorts to mediation and counseling between them, between the husband and the wife. Police officials, judicial officials, they are not sensitive to these kind of issues. Women do not have the basic support system, the psychological support system, economic support system. So it prevents them from raising their voice against their husbands. Abuses related to marital rape are not considered under this. Marital rape is not considered illegal as per our laws. We do not have specific laws for marital rape. This particular law does not consider marital rape. Apart from that, this particular law talks about creating, or it talks about appointing a special category of officers, protection officers. State has to appoint protection officers. It has to pay salaries from its own funds. Sometimes these finances of the states gets impacted. Center has made the law, but it has financial obligation on the part of the states. So again, it becomes a challenge to maintain these kind of institutions. Also in recent times, there have been increasing instances of false cases. So if there are false cases, the entire law is criticized. Despite the fact being, the number of false cases is very less as compared to the total number of cases. So these are some challenges when it comes to implementation of domestic violence. Now, what can be done for the above two things, for the domestic violence as well as dowry? What can be done? What can be done to improve the issues? Now, the next part, what steps need to be taken to improve the situation of women within the household? So, one of the reasons why women do not raise their voices, they lack a support system. So women need to be provided with some sort of protection. They need to be provided with some support system. So more NGOs related to women need to be encouraged. Women do not have independence. they are dependent on their male counterparts, they're dependent on their in-laws, which prevents them from raising their voices. So we need to ensure that women are empowered. Justice is delivered on time. If justice is delayed, justice is denied, we need to take this into consideration. So we need to have maybe special fast track courts which can handle justice. Local government have a very significant role to play. See, what is happening at the grassroots level? The local governments are aware of it. Because, again, they know the people around them. They know what kind of family it is, what kind of issue is there. So, local government has a role to play. They can stop these kind of violences, and if they know these kind of violences are there, they can provide the support network to the female who can come up and raise her voice. Police officials and judicial officials need to be sensitized. Women, sometimes they are not aware. They need to be made more aware of these kind of things. So these steps can be taken up which can ensure a better status of women in the society within the household. Now we will look at some recent issues. The issue of women and cyber security. In recent times, there has been an increase of cyber crimes against women. It has increased at an alarming rate. We have a law in place, Information Technology Act of 2000, to handle different cyber crime issues, but it does not specifically look at the issue of women. It does not address the security of women specifically. So that is the reason we need to focus on that. New kind of crimes specifically targeting women have come up. For example, cyber stalking, morphing, email spoofing. Online harassment of women has also increased. Social media, social networking has been used to circulate offensive content. Internet has been used as a medium for trafficking of women. So new type of cyber crimes have emerged. And the problem with cyber crime is it is very difficult to attribute who has committed these crimes. These crimes might have been committed beyond your borders. The person might have masked his identity multiple times. So that is the reason these kind of issues are very difficult to trace, very difficult to address. So what we can do to ensure security of women at cyberspace? So at present, the police officials, judicial officials that we have, they might not be well trained to handle this. So we need to provide them different kind of training. Awareness and training program for our judicial and police official is very important. Apart from this, cyber forensic labs we need. These kind of crimes are very difficult to trace. So we need to have a very strong cyber forensic infrastructure. Apart from that, cyber crime cells have to be set up in states and union territories. You can easily approach these cells in case there has been any instance of cyber crime. Apart from that, 24-hour helpline needs to be provided. So these issues can be asked. New emergent issue, quite frequently in the news, can be asked in your mains exam, and what can be some ways to handle it. Apart from that, in recent times, there has been another issue, the issue related to surrogacy. How surrogacy is impacting women. What is the issue of surrogacy and what can be done to improve it? Has there been any recent law or is there any effort to make a law to improve on the present scenario? What is surrogacy? Surrogacy is the mechanism by which you can commission a baby. So you are commissioning a baby, someone else is bearing the baby. So the pregnancy part, the delivery part is being handled by someone, but someone is getting that baby. So this is surrogacy, and there have been some recent criticisms about surrogacy. It is said that surrogacy is leading to exploitation. There has been commercialization of surrogacy. How there is commercialization of surrogacy? So, see, when you are commissioning a female to bear a child, you have to pay some amount of money. So you are getting a child, at the same time the surrogate mother is getting some amount of money. So this entire industry, it is said to be a $2.3 billion industry in case of India. That is the amount of money this industry has right now. That is the size of the industry. Now, because of commercialization, there can be exploitation. How? Some women who are belonging to that poor economic social state, they might be forced into surrogacy. there can be middlemen involved who are exploiting these women. The women might not be getting all the benefits. Also, these women, they are generally coming from poorer section of the society. They might not be educated, they might be illiterate. So, the contracts that these women sign before they enter into pregnancy, these contracts might not be favoring them. And since they are not educated, they are not literate, they cannot exercise their rights. They might not be challenging the provisions in these contracts. So also sometimes we have faced different challenges after the pregnancy. For example, in case a child is born with some sort of deformity, some sort of disability, the child might be abandoned by the parents. They're not willing to take the child. And then it becomes the responsibility of the surrogate mother. How will she take it up? Apart from that, sometimes some countries are not recognizing surrogate babies. They're not giving them citizenship. This also can lead to abandonment of babies. So we have faced these challenges in recent times. It is in this context that the government wanted to, or the government has introduced a surrogacy bill. They are trying to regulate the surrogacy. How they want to regulate it? So they are saying we should not have commercial surrogacy. We should have altruistic surrogacy. That means only a relative can bear a surrogate child. Now, any female can bear a surrogate child. We will not have it. Also, to commission a surrogacy, again, you have certain criteria. Only married couples who had been married for a certain duration, who have not been able to bear a child, there have been some medical conditions, medical issues because of which they were not able to bear a child, they can commission a surrogate child. So different conditions are there. So single parents, live-in partners, gay parents, homosexual couples, transgenders, NRI, people of Indian origin, they also cannot commission a surrogate child. So different conditions have been set in place. Apart from that, who can be a surrogate mother? Only a relative. Also, some conditions have been put on her. For example, what should be her age? Apart from that, she should have also born a kid in the past. Also, the child should be healthy. So, different conditions are set up. We are having altruistic surrogacy and all that. On that also, multiple conditions. Also, the number of surrogate kids a female can have, that is also limited. In case there is a violation of these provisions, penal provisions have also been mentioned. National and state surrogacy boards will be set up. So at state level, as well as the central level, you are setting up different boards which will be regulating these provisions. So we are moving from a scenario where we had commercial surrogacy to a scenario where we are having altruistic surrogacy. We are regulating surrogacy now. So what will be the positive of this bill? How will it impact the condition of female? See, every pregnancy had some risk. In case of India, maternal health, women lag behind when it comes to maternal health. Maternal mortality rates are also very high. So this kind of law can check maternal mortality. It can ensure that the health of the female as well as the health of the child remains intact. Repeated pregnancies will not be there. Female will be protected from exploitation. Now only relative can bear a child. So women will be prevented from exploitation. So health-wise, women are protected. They are also protected from different kind of exploitation. So that is the positive of this law. But can this law also have certain negatives? Just think about it. Will it have some negative? There is a demand for surrogate children. In recent times, you might have heard, you might have come across different news articles about different celebrities going for surrogate child. Different Bollywood celebrities going for surrogate child. Many times NRIs, many times foreigners, they come to India to have a surrogate kid. So there is a demand for surrogacy in India. But you are creating a law by which this is being prevented. So there are chances that this particular industry might go underground. And mind you, it is a $2.3 billion industry. So huge industry can go underground. It might so happen that it can go to other countries. For example, country like Nepal. So surrogate mother might be transported to Nepal during the time of pregnancy. So that risk is there. And in case it is going underground, women who are uh, pregnant or who are bearing the child, they will not be having legal protection. Apart from that, there will be undue pressure on relatives now. Now, in a family, there is a couple, they are not able to have a kid. They cannot commission any female for surrogacy. They can only take the help of a relative. So there can be undue pressure, undue coercion within families on relatives. Apart from that, this law is not progressive in the sense that it is not considering the societal reality. In our society, there are homosexual couples, there can be transgender couples in future. We are drafting a law for transgenders. So we are not taking that into consideration. We are having living partners, and in future, these kind of trends will be there. So we are not taking that into consideration. So maybe we should have considered this. Apart from that, it is taking away the livelihood of those poor female who used to bear multiple number of kids, and that way they were earning some money. So these are certain negatives of this particular policy that we are trying to draft now. So till now, we looked at different challenges, different issues that women face. We looked at different problems women face across different sectors. In politics, in agriculture, in economy, within the domestic sphere, in the workplace. So different issues women face. Now, the last part, we look at the national policy on women. In 2016, the Women and Child Development Ministry, it came up with a draft policy on women. So what is the use of a policy? Policy basically gives you that direction. What kind of goals we have for women, what kind of objective we should have for women, in which direction we should proceed in future. So policy gives that direction to us. So again, this particular policy, what is the use of this policy, or why are we drafting this policy now? When did we draft a policy in the past? So the last policy that we drafted was in 2001. So it has been almost 15 years now. A lot of things have changed during this period of time. We have seen different paradoxes when it comes to women, different kind of paradoxical trends. Our economies have improved during this period of time. We have had 8% growth, 9% growth, that kind of growth we had seen. But at the same time, the situation of women has also changed in some respect. It might also have deteriorated. The child sex ratio went down between last two census. The labor force participation rate of women also declined. So we saw different paradoxical trends. We need to address that. Apart from that, we also need to give some direction where we need to reach in next few years. That is the reason we are drafting a national policy. So this national policy on women, it talks about issues along different lines. For example, health, education, economy, governance, decision making, violence, enabling environment. What kind of environment has to be provided to women? It also talks about environment and climate change. It also talks about different emerging issues. So what it is talking about? So when it comes to healthcare, it is saying we need to provide women better access to different healthcare service. We need to recognize their right to their own health, women's own reproductive rights. We need to move away from the focus on female sterilization. We should start focusing on male sterilization as well. When it comes to education, it says that we need to ensure universalization of education. 100% enrollment of women in schools. Dropout rates we need to check. Girls should also not drop out from schools. They should equally participate in schools. When it comes to economy, we need to have gender disaggregated data, poverty data. How many women are poor? How many women are lagging behind their male counterparts? We need to increase women's participation in labor force. We need to find out a way by which we can recognize women's unpaid work. She works within the household, but she does not get paid for that. So some mechanism you should find out by which that can be recognized. Apart from that, women's right to immovable property should also be recognized. Or we have laws which give them equal inheritance right, but women do not claim those rights. So maybe greater awareness by which they can claim it. When it comes to politics, we saw women's participation in politics is less. 11% member of parliament. So we need to increase women's participation in decision making in politics. Quality as well as quantity both have to be improved. We need to address the violence that women face, domestic violence, sexual harassment. We need to have advocacy, greater awareness generation, mobilization, so that violence can be curbed. And remember one thing, boys, men, they also need to be part of it, part of these advocacy efforts. Boys, children, male child, they also have to be told that it is not correct. Abusing a girl child is not correct. So it has to start from the grassroots level. Overall, an enabling environment has to be provided. More women participation in sports. Housing policy should be such that women are having a share of the different housing schemes. So provide them that. Women and environment, they are linked together. If environment deteriorates, if environment degrades, women are more impacted. If water scarcity is there, women have to travel for longer distances. So women and environment are linked together. We have to ensure that women also participate in those processes by which you are conserving the environment. You are preventing the degradation of the environment. Also in recent times, different issues have emerged. We need to take care of that. For example, the customary laws. It is right time that we need to remove these customary laws, and we have uniform civil code. We have similar laws across religion. Personal laws that we have, the laws governing marriage, inheritance, adoption, they should be similar across religion. We also have to find out which section of women are more vulnerable than the other. Accordingly, targeted approach should be there. We need to promote more women entrepreneurs. We need to have gender budgeting in place. We have to ensure that the gender budgeting is efficient, effective. We need to have gender audit which can ensure that. So different areas of different sectors of the economy, of the society, what needs to be done for women. So this is the national policy on women, but how do we need to implement it? See, this covers different areas: health, education, economy, politics, environment. Lot of issues are there. So only one minister cannot resolve these things. So we need to have an interministerial committee which should sit together, which should find out what should be the long-term goals, which should be the long-term targets. See, these are goals, but again, we need to find out targets, some numbers that this thing we have to achieve. Again, we need to find out short-term, medium-term, long-term targets. And then there should be some committee, some other committee, interministerial committee again, which should check whether we are reaching our short-term, medium-term and long-term goals. So this is how we need to implement our national policy on women. And the final part here, so we have learned so many things related to women. Now the last thing here, when it comes to different challenges that women face, whatever issues that women face in the society, how do we address that? So there are primarily two approaches, two dominant approach. How do we address the issues related to women? So what are these approaches? Rights-based approach and safety approach. So, for example, one incident I can quote. There was an eve-teasing incident in Bangalore a few years back. New Year Eve, there was this eve-teasing incident. And that happened in one of the posh areas, one of the prominent areas of Bangalore. Now, in case you are the administrator over there, or you have been given all the resources at your disposal, now next year you have to prevent similar kind of issue from happening. So what can be the approach? One approach can be, you have greater surveillance. You are ensuring surveillance. That means you are having more police officials at that place. You are ensuring more security. You are having CCTV cameras at that place. So because of this thing, because of greater security, greater number of CCTV cameras at that place, a person over there who could have committed that particular crime might not commit, because he's afraid now. So this is a deterrent approach. So he's afraid that in case he's committing this crime, he can be caught on camera, or a police official might notice it, and there can be consequences. He might be arrested. So he will not do it. So this approach by which you are ensuring that the different kind of violence is not happening against women, this approach is called safety approach. So you are strengthening security. You might be having greater border control. Sometimes border control also leads to greater security. You can also, so what you are doing, you are just increasing the sexual surveillance of citizens. Their sexual behavior, you are surveilling. Surveillance is there on their sexual behavior. You are just keeping a tab on that. So this is one approach. But mind you, in this approach, what you are doing, you are just preventing that person from committing that particular crime. But that criminal bent of mind still exists. He might not have committed that crime here, but in another place, let's say where there is no CCTV camera, there is no police official, he can commit it. So this approach is not a sustainable approach, but this approach can be used when you do not have sufficient time at your disposal. Today an incident has happened. Next month you have to control similar kind of situation will be there. You need to control similar kind of crime. So you can use this approach. So if you have a shorter period of time at your disposal, this approach is the best approach. But this is not sustainable because that criminal sentiment still exists. That person still believes that women's body is his right. He's treating women as his or her, his property. So the other approach is the rights-based approach. What is this rights-based approach? See, under this approach, you are handling the actual issue. What is the actual issue? The perception among some section of the males, among some section of men, that women are their property. Men and women are unequal. That thing is being handled. So this approach tries to raise awareness. It tries to create that society in which men and women are equal. Men and women are not different. They are equal. So women are equal citizens. Just like men, they are also equal citizens. Rights of women are recognized. Their rights are protected. So, and this thing will not happen overnight. This will take time. So a child, when he is getting exposed to different ideas, at that point of time, these values need to be inculcated. When he is going to the school, he is being told that men and women, girl and boys, they are equal. It has to happen from the school level. It has to happen from the family level. So it's to creation of a society in which both men and women are equal. So this is a more sustainable approach. This can prevent atrocities against women. But again, this is something which will not happen overnight. It takes time. But this is something we should aim to achieve in future. So our education system, our curriculum, our teaching methodology should take this into consideration. Gradually families are also becoming egalitarian. We are moving towards nuclearization of family. In nuclear families, generally you have joint division of roles. So egalitarian roles we are moving towards, that can also help in this process. So this is a very important thing. So whenever there is any question related to women's security safety, focus on both the things. Depending on the requirement, you might have to use one of these approaches. If something has to be done immediately, safety approach is more important. But if you have time, then go for rights-based approach because it is more sustainable in the long run. So this is about women issues. We covered different issues related to women, different challenges, different threats, different types of violence, different mechanisms, constitutional mechanisms, legal mechanisms, how to handle that, and also some of the recent policy mechanisms that we are trying to develop. And the most important thing, the approach related to women's security. This is all about women issues. Keep this in mind. You can be asked question in General Studies paper 1. You can be asked question in General Studies paper 2. Sometimes indirectly you can also have questions in GS3, GS4 as well. Specifically in GS4. Essay also you might have question related to women. Generally I ask question related to women also. So this is about women issues. Thank you.